As the mobility ecosystem is transforming globally, technology is enabling companies to manage the challenges and power through this transition. To get to know more about this, we are in conversation today with Mr. Detlev Reicheneder, Senior Director Business Strategy, Manufacturing and Design at Autodesk. Mr. Reicheneder, thank you so much for talking to us and taking out the time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about the opportunity in India.
Right. So, Mr. Reicheneder, I mean, your thoughts on, we are seeing this massive transformation in the mobility space right now. How do you perceive the role of, if I may start with design first, how do you see the role of design in this entire transition? How are you seeing design changing in the products that we see in the automotive world?
It's increasingly important. If you think about the past, design was a differentiator always, but now it becomes even more a differentiator because you need to find a new design language as an EV company, as a startup who thinks about micro-mobility. You have a motorcycle which doesn't have an engine or an exhaust anymore. What makes a motorcycle without an engine and an exhaust? So you need to find your own design DNA. And now comes the difficulty. You already are under pressure, under time pressure. How can you get faster than the competition, faster than the next startup? So speed, agility, and precision, and getting very fast to the next level of design, and a design which is appealing to customers, getting even increasingly important.
Right. So how is technology playing its part there? I mean, is simulation, digital twin, all these things really allowing some of these new companies which are entering this space now?
Definitely, but you need to see technology just as an enabler. It's like an extension to what the designer, the stylist is doing anyhow. But what we need to do, what we need to think about is how can we automate processes? How can we help a designer to pay or to spend less time on non-value add tasks like repeating things? How can he explore more models at the same time? How can he leverage algorithms, artificial intelligence, to get new ideas and to explore new variants? This is where technology plays a role. It's not to replace a designer or a stylist, it's supporting him and extending his bandwidth, his capability, and maybe spark more imagination about new solutions.
But tell me, Mr. Reicheneder, I mean, you mentioned AI, artificial intelligence. How big a role is that going to play in the future if we talk about design in automotive? And you also mentioned innovation. If somebody is using AI, would that really be counted as pure innovation? If you could elaborate on that.
Well, an AI by itself learns from existing data sets, learns from existing data. And we all know about large language models who learn about the past and then predict certain things. And I believe AI can help to get faster to new results, but cannot innovate by itself. Not for the predictable future. But again, it's about augmenting the stylist, augmenting the engineer, augmenting to find new solutions, not so much about replacing somebody and come up with entirely new stuff without an engineer. Because it is about asking the right question, giving the right input, teaching an AI in the right way. That is where the stylist, the designer, the engineer comes in, and that makes the difference.
So going forward, it would be important for companies to leverage the power of AI if they want to be ahead of the curve?
I strongly believe so. We will see more and more AI workflows coming in which solve problems, but again, always as in a supporting function. It's not replacing somebody, but supporting, cutting out non-value add tasks, reducing repetitive tasks, and speeding up the process overall, and giving opportunities to explore more options, more variants with shorter time.
So has AI already made its foray into design, or is it yet to come? How far away are we from there?
I would say we are a leader in that space. We had already technologies which helped customers with algorithm in the cloud to explore options. Yeah? Generative design is a great example. Our generative design technology enabled engineers or designers to just set constraints and then let algorithm in the cloud explore options based on biological algorithms. And that helped many, many customers greatly to turn an existing product into a new product, yeah? Explore new options, and then pick and choose the right options. As an engineer, you might have time for exploring one option, two options, then time is out. You need to deliver. Yeah. But if you use an algorithm, an AI algorithm, you can explore many options at the same time. An algorithm can come up with hundreds and thousands of potential variants, and if you then automate the process of simulation behind this, you can pick the ones which will work for you, and that gives you the option to go with 2, 4, 5, 10 variants versus just one at the end.
Right. What happens to the IP of that design? I mean, is the designer solely the whole sole owner of that design if he's using AI?
Yeah, absolutely, because you need to train an AI on your data. You ask the question. That means that is your IP, how you do all this. Yeah, you cannot imagine that an AI all of a sudden goes out to the internet and gets IP from somewhere. That is what most customers need to start with, having their own data in a structured way so that they can train an AI on their design language, on their products, on their company strategy, if you want, and then asking the right question, guiding the right output, and setting the right constraints to get the right results. And this is becoming the IP at the end.
Right. Switching tracks, Mr. Reicheneder, towards manufacturing now. How is technology shaping manufacturing? You know, these tools like Industry 4.0, we have IoT, we have digitization. So how are they shaping the manufacturing front in the automotive industry? And what do you think is the way forward for a lot of the companies, even the younger ones that are coming into this space? Are these the must-haves that these companies should have if they want to flourish going forward?
I would say yes, but they need to have something before that. Because Industry 4.0 is a vision. It's like a North Star where you want to go. IoT is just a technology that gives you data on existing products in operation. What are you doing with that? And how do you turn this into insights, the raw data? That's why it always starts with a digital twin of your product or your factory. Let's focus on the factory as an example. Companies need to be able to plan and design a factory in context of the building as an example. Only then you can avoid late, expensive surprises. And once you have this, you can optimize. You can simulate the behavior of the factory. Yeah? You can run the factory for 24 hours, a week, a year, and see, is it the desired outcome? Do I have waste bottlenecks? Do I waste energy? Things like this. Sustainability comes in. And only if you have this, you can go to the next step, we say, installing the factory. It's like a construction project because suppliers come in competing on time and space. You want to manage this, you want to manage issues, you want to coordinate all that. Only then you can shorten the time to production startup. And then operation comes in. And here comes in IoT, because then you can take the IoT data and feed it back. But what I want to say is, it starts with having a proper digital factory. Okay. And it starts with a digital twin of the factory, which is a representation of everything which is in the factory.
Right. So are the emerging companies in the automotive ecosystem, the startups that are now coming in, especially with the EV game, are they leveraging this digital twin? Are they sort of, simulating their factories before going on stream, on the ground, making them physically? Are they using such technologies?
I would say yes. Those who manufacture are embracing that technology faster than, let's say, incumbents in the industry. Okay. And smaller companies, suppliers who need to be nimble and fast, like my best example is always Magna Steyr, they do this. Magna Steyr is well known for being an automotive supplier, but they manufacture cars on behalf of OEMs. And they do this typically if the volume of the cars is pretty low, so that it's not efficient, not profitable for the OEM. But for Magna, it's profitable. That's an interesting question. Why? And the reason is they have a true digital model of their factory. And they optimize all the time. And before they move a single part, they did that in the virtual environment and figured out if there's any issue and it brings an advantage or will it end up in a disadvantage. That's a great example. It's not a startup, but startups embracing that technology as well if they manufacture. A lot of the startups, they then leverage those companies like Magna Steyr. And that's just a network which is just growing, that several startups, which is at the end leveling the playground, can have a production outsourced, which would be unthinkable of a traditional OEM, but for a startup that is doable, which shifts the attention to design and engineering for the startup.
So do you see this becoming a trend going forward?
I would say the bigger the startups become, the more they will have a vertical integration,
right.
but it enables them to run fast at the moment, yeah? To be faster without the burden of having a full production.
Right.
But it requires for those companies who offer that production to be flexible, because they might need to manufacture different models from different brands, even from different startups
right.
at the same line potentially. And that
Right.
means a lot of agility and flexibility in the factory setup.
Right. And explain to me the role of IoT and digitalization. I mean, is it going to be more of, from the point of view of enhancing quality and, traceability, all those things, what sort of role are these tools going to play?
Yeah, so digitalization is first of all making sure that all your processes are connected. Yeah? Today, in many companies, globally, worldwide, the situation is that individual departments are digitized. Yeah? Nobody works anymore with paper. Work on Excel spreadsheets, but then you save an Excel spreadsheet and you send it via an email. Then you have two versions of the Excel spreadsheet. So the disaster starts here. So that means that is not really digitization, or this is not a digital transformation of the company. The first step of a digital transformation process is making sure that everybody has access to the same data anytime, from anywhere, from any device. This is so important because otherwise you re-enter information, you need to track all those versions, and you have a risk of operating on wrong information. And then if you go to the IoT question, there are a couple of ways companies use and should use IoT. So first, to improve their own products, because what you learn about the products in operation need to be fed back into the next generation of the product. And that means engineering needs to get access to the data and turn the data into insights. And that is important. They need to understand what is the problem I'm trying to solve, what is where I want to improve. Otherwise, you might have just a lot of data which doesn't make a lot of sense. Just the data means nothing. You need to turn the data into insights. The other option is that you run in production and you want the IoT data to be able to inform you about problems, ideally in upfront before they show up, and give you insights about potential optimization of your factory. But again, you need to put it in context. If you don't have all the data available, if a machine just shows quality issues at a certain point in time in the day, every other day, but you don't have the correlating data why, it's just another data point that you have a quality issue. So that means you need to have a real digital twin with everything in, with the geometry, with the assets, with the building, with all the building operation information about temperature, about climate control system, etc., so that you get the insights you need. This is what's important for IoT. You need to understand how to take those data, turn them into insights and act on it. A lot of companies, they spend a lot of money and time on getting IoT data, and then they have not really a good strategy what to do with the data.
So what's the strategy, Mr. Reicheneder? If I talk specifically of these startups, these are young companies, they are challenged on cash and capex. So, how are they strategizing their future in terms of, manufacturing roadmap, in terms of, leveraging these solutions or implementing these technologies on their assembly line? So, if you can explain to me on that.
Yeah, I mean, let's switch for a second to the product, because I believe the big opportunity for startups is in the product, because they have a unique opportunity compared to incumbents in the industry to change the business model. And you see a lot of those startups have very interesting business models, to serve the customers in a different way. Well, the traditional OEM business model is car is sold and that's it.
Okay.
But a startup can add value over time. The startup can add insights in the operation of that whole thing. And I'm not talking about car sharing or the last mile. There are so many interesting business models, but for those business models, you need to know what you want to, the problem you want to solve, and need to know what the current situation is. As an example, in Europe, we had all those mini scooters. But it failed, I would say, because at the end they were just laying all over the place. What was missing was a business model to incentivize the customers to bring them back at a certain point in time, as an example. And we see startups doing exactly that the customers are incentivized to bring them to a charging station. Okay, I get a little discount if I walk 100 more meters. That is smart. And this business model creates value for the rest of the customer base. That's just one example. And I believe this is what startups can use, all the information, IoT data, where is that scooter, where's the next charging station, what is the status of charging, and then create an activity out of it, an insight. But it starts with, what is the problem you want to solve?
So more than the manufacturing bit, it's the opportunity for startups lies in the product.
Correct, because they need to sell the product. Manufacturing is pretty much similar to the existing manufacturing methodologies. Yeah? But the real opportunity is in the product, differentiate with the product. If you think about how business model changes complete industries, Uber as an example, it was shaking up the taxi industry globally, worldwide, by offering an entirely different business model.
Right. So how is technology enabling some of these startups, to remain agile and flexible, given the competition tomorrow will come from the legacy players who are, they have their hands rich in cash and, so how is technology really enabling these companies?
Well, that's a very good question. And the existing incumbents, they have their established processes. And that is the opportunity, because those processes are quite rigid. Rigid for a good reason. They have investment in billions, and they need to produce hundred thousands of cars per year and so on. This is what I'm always saying, success is the enemy of progress. And you see it in the industry. Some of them were leaning back a little bit, got too comfortable with success, and all of a sudden there's some tension in the market. For startups, the opportunity is not to follow that old track, what other companies did in the last 10 and 20 years, but to apply technologies, modern technologies, cloud, artificial intelligence, make sure you collaborate extremely efficiently, make sure you use tools which help you really to be agile, not be constrained and restricted, because everybody else is using those tools. And we see startups doing exactly that, and the most successful startups change completely the way they design the products, they engineer the products, and sometimes even manufacture the products. We have an interesting startup in China, Pigs Moving. They print an entire car body, the structure. And they do it because they are on the opposite side of a traditional OEM. They want to be the one who can produce one car for one customer. It's not exactly a car, it is a mobility vehicle. And if this is a one-off, you cannot create tools and things like this. That's why they print it, as an example. It's the extreme end. But this is what companies can do if they are agile and applying technology.
Mr. Reicheneder, thank you so much. Quite an insightful conversation.